r/nosleep. Hosted by you/happyotter03. My new job had one rule: don't speak to the hooded woman. Look kid. She only comes out during the 1 a.m. hour. So, just be careful, okay? I looked at him, skeptical. I think he could tell I didn't believe him as he continued, "This is serious, okay? Just promise me you won't talk to her." "Okay. I promise." He smiled a fake smile and let me leave his office. What a load of BS. I thought to myself. Did he really think I was going to believe that some creepy chick in a hooded cloak that only comes out at 1 a.m. was real? How stupid did he think I was? I walked over to the time clock and punched in 10:08 p.m. Great. Late on my first day and it's not even my fault. I walked back out into the kitchen. My anxiety rising. You see, I don't know anyone here, but I needed a job to get my own place. It's not a great job, just an overnight drive-through job at a local fast food place. Nowhere you've probably even heard of. The name isn't important, mostly because I don't want anyone looking for it and trying to prove my story right or wrong. I promise you, however, what I'm about to tell you is real, and I will never forget that night for the rest of my life. 10:13, I take my place at the drive-through window where I would be until 6 a.m. None of the other employees have approached me, and I am completely okay with that. I did notice a few of their names on their name tags. Jim is the guy on the grill and Tina is on the register. Owen, the manager who was pulling my leg about the hooded woman, had just left for the night. Tina would be leaving at midnight due to the fact that the dining room closes then. The drive-through, however, stays open 24/7. 10:21, my first car approaches, finally. It's a family of 4. A woman, presumably the mother, is driving, the father in the passenger seat, and 2 young girls in the back seat. I ask the woman for their order, and she gladly gives it to me. Now comes the hard part: social interaction. We're an old school type of fast food place. Therefore, I had to actually go tell Jim the order. I reluctantly walk over to the grill where he's standing playing on his phone. Hey Jim, we got an order. Finally. He says, with a smile creeping across his mustached face. I read him the order: 2 kids' meals, no pickle on the burgers, and 2 large chicken tender meals. Aye Captain, he says, giving me a sarcastic salute. I smile and walk back to the window and wait for the order to arrive, which it does in no time at all. I give the kind family their food and prepare for more boredom until the next customer arrives. 10:35, Jim walks over to me and begins to try to make small talk. "So, you're Daniel, right? I see Owen didn't print you out a name tag." "Figures." I smile at him, but don't say anything. "You don't talk much, do you?" "That's cool. Well, if you have any questions about how things work around here, don't be afraid to ask." I immediately jump on his offer. "So this hooded woman thing, Owen hates all the new guys like that?" His face grows cold, yet he manages to let out a nervous laugh. "Well, if there is a hooded woman, I sure haven't seen her, and I've been working here for 9 months now." 10:53, "So, what's it normally like here at night?" I asked. He looked around the empty restaurant. "You're seeing it, kid." He replied with a laugh. "Nobody really comes here late. Most folks are already asleep." I shook my head in agreement. I look over to Tina, who is sitting on the counter taking pictures of herself. "What's up with her?" I ask him. He rolls his eyes. "Your typical case of daughter needs a job and daddy gives her one." "You mean Owen's her dad?" He nods. "She's far too pretty to be related to him," I think to myself. Me and Jim continue our small talk for what feels like ever. Talking about anything and everything. Soon enough, midnight rolls around, and Tina is quick to wave goodbye and get out of here. I don't blame her. I really didn't want to be here either. Jim was making it a little bit easier though. 12:13, I surprisingly get another customer at the drive-thru, a truck full of high school-aged kids. They order enough food to feed the entire US Army. They get their food, and drive off into the dark, cold night. "Hey Jim," I yell back to him. "Do you mind watching the window while I go use the bathroom?" He nods and walks over to my station. 12:17, as I enter the stall in the men's restroom, I notice something that sent chills down my spine. On the back of the stall door were the words "She's coming." I shivered as I sat down on the toilet and grabbed my phone out of my pocket. Great. No signal. Looks like it's going to be a very long night. 12:34, I realize I've been in the bathroom for far too long. I wash my hands and head back into the kitchen. "There you are. I thought you fell in or something," he joked. I smiled. "Nah, the hooded woman got me," I laughed. He did not. He gave me another uneasy smile. It kind of freaked me out, but I didn't believe in this stuff anyway. 1 o'clock, I start to feel uneasy. I knew that I was just paranoid, but the moment the clock struck 1, something just didn't feel right. 1:04, as I look out the drive-through window, I swear I saw a figure moving in the darkness, though it's far too dark to know for sure. The drive-through lights barely reach 10 feet away from the building, so in order to see something, they'd have to be very close. 1:11, I'm gonna go take a piss, Jim exclaimed. I shot him a smile. A weak smile, but a smile, nonetheless. 1:17, there's a knock on the door of the dining room. I'm sorry, we're closed. I scream loud enough for anyone to hear me. However, the knocking continues, quickening with every knock. I'm really hoping Jim gets out of the bathroom soon. I'm starting to get freaked out. 1:20, the knocking at the door stopped. I hear the bathroom door open and am relieved to see Jim make his way back out. He notices my worried expression and I tell him about the knocking. His face once again grows cold, however, he's not looking at me, he's looking behind me, through the window. He slowly raises a finger to his lips as if telling me that in making any noise, I'd seal both of our fates. I'd like to make an order, please. A woman's voice called out from behind me. The voice doesn't sound right though. The pitch is off. The words just don't seem like they have any life behind them. Jim shushes me again. I give him a nod. Hello? The woman's voice calls out. I turn around to look at her and am terrified by what I see. There is a figure facing away from the window. It looks almost human, but not quite. Its arms were too long, and the way it was hunched over didn't seem normal. It wore a long black cloak with a hood over its head. I reminded myself of what Owen told me. Don't speak to her. I didn't believe any of this at first, but I was starting to lose my skepticism. We need to leave, Jim whispered to me, and I nodded in agreement. He held 3 fingers up, then 2, then 1, then pointed at the door. We both bolted for it. He was slightly faster than me and made it outside much faster. Wait for me, I heard myself say. Only I wasn't the one who said it. Sorry man, Jim said.
Ha 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 ha, I heard in the woman's inhuman voice.
The next thing I heard was Jim's screams. I stood motionless, still inside of the store. It's okay. I'm okay. Are you all right in there, buddy? I heard her say in Jim's voice. I resisted the urge to speak to her and instead decided that I needed to get out of here as quickly as possible. I quietly ran to the kitchen and grabbed a spatula. I made my way back to the drive-thru and threw it out the window. The woman growled with pleasure at hearing the noise. I heard her uneven footsteps as she ran across the concrete. I wasted no time in running to the front door, and out to my car, ignoring the sight of Jim's mangled body in the parking lot. I locked the doors and turned the key in the ignition. As I looked out the window of my car, I saw a sight that will forever haunt me. The woman was standing right outside the door, this time facing towards me. Her face was a pale white with a hideous smile that was too big for her face. I didn't take the time to memorize all of her features. I knew I had to get the hell out of there. I slammed my foot on the gas pedal and never looked back. Needless to say, I quit that job after my first night there. However, I still visit during the daytime, and am astonished to see Jim flipping burgers in the kitchen. Posted by you/happyotter03. 4:42 a.m. New message. I looked at my phone. Still sitting in bed, I shook my head in disbelief. It couldn't be. Yet there it was, a new text message from Abby. The timestamp read 4:42 a.m., a time I knew all too well. The time that I found Abby dead. It happened 7 months ago. We had gotten into a pretty bad fight, and she decided to sleep on the couch for the night. I reluctantly agreed. I hated sleeping alone, but we were both stubborn hotheads and I knew if we were next to each other, we'd continue fighting for the rest of the night. I had fallen asleep somewhere around 1 a.m., and was sleeping peacefully, until a loud scream awoke me with a start. It wasn't the scream of Abby, but the scream of something else entirely. The scream, if you can even call it that, was of something primal, something otherworldly. I rushed downstairs to find a sight that has haunted my dreams to this day. Abby, well what was left of her, was lying in a mangled mess on the floor. There was blood painted everywhere, and I immediately threw up at the sight. The front door was wide open, and the red trail led straight out into the night, presumably taking Abby's bottom half along for the ride, as it wasn't left behind. I haven't had a good night's sleep since. I'm still in shock over what happened. The police told me that an animal had broken in and attacked my wife in her sleep. I told them about the unearthly scream I had heard from whatever it was, but they brushed it off. They didn't seem too concerned about the situation at all, but to be fair, what could they do? There was no person they could arrest, as there was no way any person could have committed such an act. I got no closure over the situation as I still have no idea what happened. Which made it worse when I got this text. It was a short message, but one that chilled me to the core. She made a lovely snack. What the hell? I thought to myself. This had to be some kind of sick joke. I stared blankly at the screen, not knowing what to do. I eventually decided to message whoever this was back, as it was probably just some asshole who found Abby's phone, which was in the pocket of her jeans that night. Who is this? I decided on. It was cliché, I know, but it was all I could think of. It didn't take long for the person on the other end to reply. Excellent question, but allow me to ask you one first. It said, why didn't you save her? She was so helpless, so innocent, so vulnerable. You could have saved her. She screamed for you, and you did nothing. Why? You son of a bitch. I screamed, when I noticed it started to type again. I waited to see what it had to say. Now, Daniel, that's not very nice. Do you kiss your wife with that mouth? Oh wait, no. You don't. I was seething at this point, but the anger then melted into fear as I replied to the stranger. How did you know I was cursing you? I asked, my hands shaking as I looked around my dark room, only illuminated by the faint glow of the moonlight. The stranger didn't respond as quickly this time. I sat in my bed dreading to see the 3 dots displayed when someone is typing. However, I didn't get them. Instead, I received a picture message. It was a picture of a door. A door I immediately recognized as my bedroom door. My heart raced in my chest. I looked towards the door, expecting it to swing open at any second, but it didn't. My phone notified me of another text message, and I jumped from pure terror. I looked down at my phone still resting in my shaky hands. The message, as I expected, was from Abby's number. Don't worry, Daniel. I'm not going to kill you. Actually, I'm just here to deliver a gift to you. When you're done being scared, come outside the door and look what I brought you. I promise, you'll love it. My stomach was in knots. I looked around the room, half expecting to see some grotesque monster. But, alas, I didn't. I turned on the bedside lamp and waited for another 10 minutes or so before I lifted the covers, nervously got out of bed, and walked to the door. I stood in front of it for a moment, contemplating if I really wanted to open it. I've seen many horror movies, and I knew that it was a bad idea to do so. I eventually gave in to temptation and grabbed the cold doorknob. I slowly turned it but hesitated to open the door. Come on, Dan. Quit being scared. This is just someone playing a sick prank. I thought to myself, even though I didn't even believe the foolish words rolling off my tongue. I yanked the door open. What I saw was not what I expected. It wasn't a monster. It wasn't the missing lower half of my wife. It was a piece of paper folded up lying on the wooden floor. I knelt down and picked it up, slowly unfolding it to reveal its contents. It was very sloppy, and nearly illegible. I eventually was able to distinguish what was written. See you tomorrow night. These events occurred last night. I'm writing this at 10:37 p.m. as a desperate plea for help. I know it's coming for me. My phone just vibrated. I'm scared to even look at it. Help me. Please. Help me. Posted by you/happyotter03. My inner child has a dark secret. You know the cliché phrase, my inner child is coming out? I'm sure you've heard it once or twice. When I say it, however, I mean it literally. You see, I have a condition called DID, dissociative identity disorder, more commonly known as split personalities. At any time, I could change from talking like a mature adult, to my other self. My inner child. This makes doing my job very difficult. I'm a manager at a local pharmacy, and the customers don't truly understand what's going on when I start talking in a little girl voice when I am a 27-year-old man. The worst part about the instances when Kelly, my inner child, takes over, is that I don't even realize that it happened until after the fact. I'll just be going about my day and then there will be a gap in my memory. I assume later on that I must have switched personalities during that blank period. My friends don't like Kelly. They say that she creeps them out. I'm not sure why, but then again, I've never met her. I've asked Lindsay, my best friend, about the episodes where Kelly is in control, but she never seems to want to talk about it. My wife doesn't talk to me about it either. Everyone acts as if Kelly doesn't exist, but she does. And I think she's dangerous. Yesterday during work, I must have had one of my blackouts, or whatever I'm supposed to call them. I had just finished stocking the children's Tylenol when my memory goes blank. The next thing I know, I'm holding a box cutter with the blade out, and staring intently at an old lady looking at cough medicine. When I come to, I am mortified. What the hell was going on? Why did I leave the aisle I was in, come to this aisle, open my box cutter and walk up behind some stranger? Luckily, the woman didn't notice me, and I was able to pocket the razor-sharp blade before she turned around and saw what was occurring. I talked to Jamie, my wife about the incident, and she insisted that I see my psychiatrist about it. I reluctantly agreed. I already knew what Dr. Thompson would do, up the dosage on my meds. I believe he thinks I'm making it all up, which I can't blame him. I've never had an episode at his office, and I'm not going to fake one just so he'll believe me. The next day I went into his office, took a seat and told him the story. He sat in his chair taking notes while I spoke. At least, that's what I think he was doing, as I couldn't actually see the clipboard. After the session was over, he wrote me a prescription for a higher dosage medication as I expected. The medicine never really did anything. It didn't stop the blackouts. They still happened, and if I didn't know better, I'd say they happen more frequently since I started them a year and a half back. Before I started seeing Dr. Thompson, Kelly only ever took over once or twice a month. Now, however, she took control on a daily basis. I explained that to the doctor multiple times, but his solution was always just to up the dosage. I hated him. He didn't take anything I told him seriously. He treated me like some kind of junkie who just wanted pills, and then would be on their way. I understand why though, and in all honesty, I'd probably act the same way if I were in his shoes. My condition sounds crazy. I still remember the day he told me I had DID. I couldn't believe it, and in all honesty, I thought I was possessed. I never really thought of it as a split personality. I swung through the pharmacy on my way home from his office. It was my day off from work, and I was looking forward to relaxing and playing video games. I got my prescription from the young pharmacy tech, that couldn't be more than 1 year out of college, and started the short drive back to my house. I knew Jamie would already be at work when I came home, so I'd have the house to myself for the afternoon, and I was perfectly fine with that. Well, not entirely alone. Our St. Bernard, Bruce, would be there to keep me company. Jamie works as in real estate, and is usually alone, unless showing a house to potential buyers. She didn't mind, however, she liked the freedom. As expected, the moment I got home he came rushing to the door to greet me. I rubbed behind his ears, and he panted in pleasure. "I missed you too, buddy," I told him as I walked into the kitchen to refill his food bowl, which was completely empty. I had sworn I had filled it just a few hours ago. Weird. I thought to myself. I wasn't going to dwell on it too much, however, it was my day to relax after all, and that was exactly what I planned to do. I remember booting up my PC and opening up Steam to search for a game to play. Then, I blacked out again. The next thing I remembered was standing in the bathroom, looking at myself in the mirror. There was something off about my appearance, and it didn't take me long to realize what it was. I was covered in blood. It wasn't my own blood, I soon realized, and I had no open wounds anywhere on my body. I did a thorough search to make sure of it. I began to panic as I thought back to the box cutter incident and thought of what could have happened if I would have come to just a couple seconds later. Whose blood was this? I thought to myself, not knowing if I truly wanted to know the answer. I ran down the stairs to find the front door open, and Bruce nowhere to be found. Oh no. Please tell me I didn't hurt him, I thought. I couldn't handle the pain it would have caused me if I had done something to that poor innocent creature. I looked all around the house. Once I knew he wasn't there, I went back upstairs to change my clothes and search for him outside, knowing that walking around in a bloody white shirt would draw attention to myself. I looked like freaking Billy Loomis, for God's sake. I changed, cleaned up and walked outside the house. I walked up and down the block for what felt like hours when my phone rang. "Hello?" I answered. "Is this James Donsley?" A voice I didn't recognize asked on the other line. "Yes? Who is this?" "This is Detective Monroe with the homicide unit of the LAPD. He replied, and my blood ran cold. Oh no. What had she done? I thought. "I'm sorry, sir, but your wife was attacked at a house she was cleaning up. She was dead when we got here. I can't say anything more, but I would like you to come down to the station, please." "Yes. Of course, officer. I'll be there right away," I said, tears forming in my eyes. I knew it was her. But how could I tell the police that? They'd never believe me. They'd think I'm crazy, just like Thompson does. I got to this station and was greeted by a clean-shaved man in a white shirt and tie. He had a badge on his belt, and I assumed it had to be the man I spoke with. "You must be James." He spoke. I nodded. "I'm sorry for your loss, sir." "What? What happened?" I asked, nearly breaking down into tears once more. "For me to tell you anything further, you're going to need to follow me," he said in a sympathetic tone. I agreed, and he led me into an interview room where we both took seats opposite each other. The neighbors of the house she was selling called when they heard a woman screaming. When we arrived, she was lying on the floor covered in blood. She had been stabbed 47 times, and there was no sign of anyone around. I began to cry once more. I couldn't contain my emotions. We looked around and the only evidence we found was a note. It read, "Kelly was here. Now, Mr. Donsley, I'm going to have to ask you a few questions. Starting with if you know anyone named Kelly?" he asked. I shook my head. "No, officer." I sniffled. Maybe it was one of her friends I didn't know about? I lied. Guilt was weighing on me, and I wanted to tell him the truth, but I couldn't go to jail. It wasn't me who did it. It was Kelly, and she wasn't afraid to make sure everyone knew it. He continued the interview, asking me questions ranging from where was I during the time, to do I know anyone that would want to hurt her? I told him I was at home, and that she didn't have any enemies. Everyone who knew her, loved her, were my exact words. And they were true. For the most part. I mean, every person she knew did love her. But I guess Kelly didn't. The interrogation finally ended, and he told me he'd be in touch. I cried the entire way home. When I got home, however, a little bit of happiness washed over me. Bruce was back. Sitting in the doorway. I got out of the car, and he ran over to me like always. As he got closer, however, I noticed something hanging out of his mouth. It was a note, splattered in red with what was presumably blood. "Give it here, boy," I said, and he kindly obliged. I grabbed the piece of paper and unfolded it. What I read chilled me to the bone. It read, "She was a fun beginning, but next time I think we should try something a little less traditional than a knife. A chainsaw maybe? Ike. I'll figure it out. Anyways, I'll see you soon. Love, Kelly." I read it over and over again, and I'm terrified. I'm not sure what scares me more. The fact that the cops are going to figure it out. Or the fact that she's going to kill again.